Humans are peculiar creatures, Ambassador Solaris mused, his translucent energy form pulsing with subtle waves of violet and gold as he observed the bustling New York streets below. They build towering structures of steel and glass, yet some of their kind sleep in cardboard boxes. Simply inefficient. The Luminari Embassy, a stunning crystalline structure that seemed to float above Fifth Avenue, sparkled with the combined essence of its inhabitants. These beings of pure energy had arrived on Earth 6 months ago, bringing promises of advanced technology and cosmic wisdom. Yet their understanding of humanity remained amusingly limited. Father Aurora chirped, her young energy form flickering with impatient cyan sparkles. Watch that small human below. What is it doing? Ambassador Solaris directed his attention to where his daughter's energy tendrils pointed. A human boy, approximately 13 Earth cycles old according to their databases, was crouching beside one of those inefficient humans who chose to remain on the streets. The boy wore a red backpack that seemed comically large for his frame, and his brown hair stuck out at angles that would have given any self-respecting Luminari a conniption. Yes, Jake Miller. Solaris accessed the embassy's recognition systems. He passes by our embassy precisely 2.7 times per day. Such predictable creatures. The boy was doing something that made both Luminari observers pulse with bewilderment. He was removing items from his backpack and handing them to the elderly female human wrapped in layers of worn fabric. Father, he's giving away perfectly good resources. Should we alert Earth's authorities? Perhaps he's malfunctioning. Aurora's form twisted with confusion, creating small eddies of energy that made nearby electronics flicker. Solaris emitted what humans might interpret as a chuckle, a brief flash of orange rippling through his form. No, my dear, this is what humans call charities or kindness, a most inefficient practice where they give away resources without expecting equivalent exchange. It's one of their many charming flaws. Well, Jake Miller was sharing what appeared to be a sandwich with the elderly woman. His face bore what the Luminari had learned was called a smile, another peculiar human trait that involved contorting facial muscles to convey emotional states. Good morning, sir. Jake's voice carried up to the embassy's observation deck. Their advanced sensors picked up every word. I brought you some of my mom's famous turkey sandwich today, and look, the bakery down the street gave me their day-old pastries again. The elderly woman, Sarah, reached out with trembling hands to accept the offerings. Bless you, child. You're an angel, you are. Aurora's form rippled with what could only be described as disgust. Father, this is the 3rd time this week. Why do the human authorities allow this waste of resources? The female unit is clearly non-productive. In our society, she would have been converted to energy storage centuries ago. Now, Aurora, Solaris pulsed soothingly. We must respect local customs, no matter how illogical they may seem. Though I must admit, the boy's behavior is particularly puzzling. Our scans show his family unit operates at only 47 of optimal resource capacity, yet he persists in this sharing. A small crowd of junior Luminari diplomats had gathered at the window now, their combined curiosity creating a spectacular light show that made passing humans stop and stare. Ambassador Solaris called out Delegate Nova, his energy form crackling with amusement. Perhaps we should conduct an experiment. Surely the boy would benefit from understanding the inefficiency of his actions. Solaris considered this for a moment, his form shifting through various shades of blue. As long as we maintain diplomatic protocols, a small lesson might be education. And so began what the Luminari would later refer to as the Great Misunderstanding, though not for the reasons they initially imagined. Aurora, being the youngest and most eager to interact with humans, took the lead. She projected her form down to the street level, materializing beside Jake, just as he was helping Sarah adjust her worn blanket. Human child, Aurora's voice chimed like crystal bells, making both Jake and Sarah look up in surprise. Your actions demonstrate a severe lack of resource management skills. Would you like a comprehensive efficiency analysis? Jake blinked, then smiled, that peculiar muscle movement again. Oh, hello. You're one of the Luminari, aren't you? Would you like to share our breakfast? Sarah tells the most amazing stories about old New York. Aurora's form flickered in confusion. You offer to share resources with me, an advanced being who requires no physical sustenance. And you invite me to listen to outdated data from a non-productive unit. Fascinating, Father E lay above them. The embassy windows now gleamed with dozens of watching Luminari, all pulsing with various shades of amusement and bewilderment. Oh man, Aurora continued, trying to maintain her diplomatic composure. Perhaps you are unaware that your actions defy all logical resource distribution protocols. This, Sarah, produces nothing of value for your society. Your time and resources would be better spent on self-improvement or productive activities. Sarah chuckled softly, pulling her blanket tighter around her shoulders. There was something about her eyes, a twinkle that seemed to catch the morning light in an almost familiar way. Jake's smile never wavered. But Miss Luminari, helping others is self-improvement. And Sarah produces something super valuable. She produces happiness. Did you know she used to be a dancer at Carnegie Hall? She knows more about grace than anyone I've ever. Aurora's form sparked with indignation. Grace? Grace? We are beings of pure energy. We are grace. Watch this. She spun in a dazzling display of light and color that had passing humans reaching for their sunglasses. Sarah applauded softly. Beautiful, dear. But you know what would make it even more beautiful? If you shared it with someone who needed a little light in their life. For the first time in her existence, Aurora found herself speechless, a condition that only worsened as her father and the entire diplomatic corps descended to street level in a cascade of shimmering light. Most irregular, Ambassador Solaris declared, his form pulsing with official importance. Young human, your behavior has been noted, and what is that energy signature? All the Luminari present suddenly stiffened, their forms blazing with recognition. Sarah's eyes twinkled even more as she slowly stood up, her ragged blanket falling away to reveal a form that began to glow with an intensity that made even the Luminari seem dim in comparison. My dear Ambassador, Sarah's voice now rang with authority that seemed to echo through dimensions. I believe your efficiency protocols need some updating. Queen Celestia. The collective gasp of the Luminari created a power surge that knocked out half of Manhattan's traffic lights. The supposedly missing queen of the Luminari stood before them, her energy form gradually emerging from its human disguise like a butterfly from a chrysalis. 3 months I have walked among the humans, watching, learning, and being consistently surprised by their capacity for kindness. Aurora's form had shrunk to about half its usual size. But, we've been searching the galaxy for you. The whole empire is in an uproar. And you were here pretending to be a non-productive unit. Queen Celestia's laugh sounded like wind chimes in a summer breeze. My dear child, there is no such thing. Every being has value. Something young Jake here understood instinctively while you, my advanced and enlightened subjects, failed to see it. Jake, for his part, was standing there with his mouth open, half a turkey sandwich still in his hand. Would your majesty still like the other half of this sandwich? Queen Celestia's form rippled with delight. My dear boy, I would be honored. Though I must admit, after 3 months, I still haven't quite figured out how humans actually process these energy-dense materials you call food. What followed was perhaps the strangest breakfast in New York history. A human boy sharing a turkey sandwich with the queen of an advanced alien race, while dozens of embarrassed Luminari diplomats tried to process how thoroughly they had misread the Sci-Fi but inefficiency. Aurora finally managed to squeak, "Is sometimes the most efficient path of all." Queen Celestia finished. Compassion, my dear subjects, is not a waste of resources. It is the force that binds societies together, that lifts up the fallen, that sees value where others see only cost. Young Jake here has demonstrated more wisdom than our entire diplomatic corps. Ambassador Solaris's form had turned a very interesting shade of pink. We may need to revise our first contact protocols, Your Majesty. Oh, indeed, Queen Celestia agreed cheerfully. And I believe Jake would be the perfect consultant for that project. That is, if you're interested, young man. Jake looked up from where he was still sharing his sandwich with the queen of an interstellar civilization. Does this mean I get to skip math class? The Luminari would later mark this as the first time they truly understood human humor, because every single one of them joined in when Queen Celestia burst out laughing. And so, the story of how a boy with a turkey sandwich taught an advanced alien race about the value of kindness became part of both human and Luminari history. though the Luminari still didn't quite understand why humans insisted on telling the story with so many exclamation points and dramatic pauses. For Aurora, well, she can now be found every morning, sharing energy treats and the occasional turkey sandwich with anyone who looks like they could use a little light in their life. After all, as she frequently tells new Luminari diplomats, efficiency isn't everything, but kindness might be. And somewhere in the grand halls of the Luminari embassy, there's still a worn blanket carefully preserved in a crystal case, a reminder that wisdom often comes wrapped in the most unexpected packages. Attention! The Luminari Academy's crystal spires pulsed with Aurora's excited announcement. Has anyone seen Ambassador Jake? He's late for his own ceremony, again. 6 months had passed since the Great Turkey Sandwich incident, as it was now officially recorded in both human and Luminari diplomatic archives, and the youngest human ambassador in history had developed a rather peculiar habit of disappearing right before important events. Ambassador Solaris's form flickered with what his fellow Luminari had learned to recognize as poorly suppressed amusement. Have you checked the lower levels, my dear? Perhaps near the, what do humans call it? Yes, the food court. Aurora's energy form swirled with exasperation, creating small tornadoes of light that made the nearby human diplomats reach for their special protective eyewear. Father, this is the integration ceremony. Queen Celestia herself is attending. We can't have our human ambassador wandering around feeding random people again, can't we though? Came a familiar laughing voice from behind her. Queen Celestia materialized in her preferred semi-human form, a compromise she'd adopted after discovering that her full energy form tended to overload Earth's power grids. She still wore the same knowing smile that had once graced Sarah the beggar's face. Your Majesty. Aurora quickly composed herself, her form shifting to the formal geometric patterns required by protocol. I apologize for the delay. It seems our human ambassador has once again become distracted. Queen Celestia's eyes twinkled with that now famous sparkle. Or perhaps exactly where he needs to be. Shall we find out? The 3 Luminari descended to the embassy's ground level, where they found exactly what the Queen had expected. Jake, now 14 and sporting an official diplomatic uniform that somehow still managed to look charmingly rumpled, was sitting cross-legged on the floor, sharing his lunch with a group of wide-eyed alien children from 6 different species. And that's why humans call it a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Jake was explaining to a fascinated young Zalaxian, whose tentacles were rather impressively tangled in said sandwich, even though it technically contains neither butter nor actual jelly. Jake, Aurora's voice chimed like 1,000 crystal bells being rung at once. The ceremony starts in exactly 7.3 minutes. You're supposed to be teaching advanced interspecies diplomatic protocols, not demonstrating them in action. Queen Celestia finished smoothly. Tell me, Aurora dear, what was your first lesson after our little revelation 6 months ago? Aurora's form dimmed slightly. That true diplomacy happens in unexpected moments, and that kindness transcends formal protocols. Precisely. The Queen clapped her energy-formed hands together. And what do we have here? A human ambassador building bridges with the next generation of galactic citizens, using that most universal of diplomatic tools, food. Jake looked up with that same infectious grin that had first puzzled the Luminari half a year ago. Would anyone like to join us? I have extra sandwiches. Mom always packs extra now. Says she never knows which alien dignitary I might need to introduce to Earth cuisine. What happened next would later be recorded in the Luminari archives as the Great Integration Shift. Though most humans simply called it the Sandwich Summit, Queen Celestia gracefully sat down on the floor, a sight that made several junior diplomats short-circuit momentarily, her energy form creating a warm, welcoming glow. Well, young ones, since we're all here, perhaps you could teach me about your favorite foods from your homeworlds. Aurora's protest died mid-flicker as she watched the scene unfold. A young Centaurian crystal being excitedly described their solar flare delicacies. The Xylaxian child, still wonderfully tangled in peanut butter, spoke of atmospheric pressure treats that changed flavor with altitude. But the ceremony. Aurora's voice had reached a pitch that made nearby windows vibrate. Ambassador Solaris placed a calming tendril on his daughter's shoulder. My dear, look around you. Is this not exactly what the integration ceremony was meant to achieve? Indeed, the floor of the Luminari embassy had transformed into something remarkable. Diplomatic children who normally sat stiffly through formal functions were now trading pieces of their lunch with wide-eyed wonder. Jake had somehow produced enough sandwiches for everyone leading some Luminari to secretly suspect he had mastered quantum storage mechanics without telling anyone. Did you know, Jake announced to his enthralled audience, that on Earth, almost every major historical event involved people sharing food. The first Thanksgiving, the Last Supper, peace treaties, trade agreements. Even my mom says you can't solve big problems on an empty stomach. Queen Celestia's form pulsed with approval. Your mother sounds like a very wise woman, Ambassador. Oh, she is. Jake beamed. She's the one who taught me that you can't judge anyone until you've shared a meal with them. Though, he glanced apologetically at the Luminari. I guess you folks don't exactly eat meals. Aurora, who had finally given in and joined the floor gathering, sparked with sudden inspiration. Actually, we might not eat like humans do, but we do share energy. Father, remember those recreational energy transfer patterns we used to do when I was newly formed? Ambassador Solaris's form brightened considerably, the luminescent dances. But those haven't been performed in centuries. We deemed them inefficient. Inefficient. Or perhaps just waiting for the right moment. Queen Celestia suggested with that mysterious smile that had fooled an entire embassy. What followed was perhaps the most unusual diplomatic event in galactic history. Luminari diplomats began demonstrating their ancient energy transfer dances, creating patterns of light that had the alien children gasping in delight. Not to be outdone. The Centaurians showed how they could refract light through their crystalline forms, creating rainbows that danced across the walls. Jake, practically bouncing with excitement, had begun teaching everyone the Pokey, a human dance that the Luminari found both bewildering and oddly compelling. You put your energy tendril in, you put your energy tendril out. You see, Aurora? Queen Celestia murmured as they watched Jake attempting to teach a Zalaxian how to spin in a circle without tangling its tentacles, largely unsuccessfully, but with much laughter. Sometimes the greatest diplomatic achievements don't happen in grand ceremonies or formal negotiations. They happen in these small moments of shared joy. Aurora's form had taken on a soft, rosy hue that indicated deep thought. I understand now, Your Majesty. When I first met Jake, I thought he was wasting resources by sharing them. But he wasn't sharing resources at all, was he? He was sharing something far more valuable. And what was that, my dear? Himself. Aurora's form brightened with realization. His time, his friendship, what do humans call it? His heart? Queen Celestia nodded approvingly. And look what that simple act has created. Around him, the impromptu gathering had grown. Senior diplomats, drawn by the sound of laughter and possibly the smell of peanut butter, had begun joining the circle. Stories were being exchanged, cultural barriers melting away faster than ice cream on a summer day. I believe, Ambassador Solaris announced with formal gravity that was somewhat undermined by the fact that he was attempting to master the Pokey, that we should revise the integration ceremony protocols. Clearly, we have much to learn about. Informal diplomatic channels. Jake grinned as he handed out the last sandwich. Does this mean I don't have to give a formal speech? Oh no, Aurora chimed in, her form now pulsing with mischievous light. You still have to give a speech, but perhaps you could give it here, with all of us. And maybe, she flickered hopefully with more sandwiches. Queen Celestia's laugh echoed through the embassy, making the crystals sing. I believe, my dear subjects, that we have just witnessed the birth of a new diplomatic tradition. The Luminari High Council may never be the same, especially once they try the peanut butter. And so on that remarkable day, the stuffy halls of the Luminari Embassy were forever changed. The integration ceremony became known as the Integration Celebration, where diplomats of all species gathered not in formal halls, but in comfortable circles, sharing their equivalent of sandwiches and stories. Jake Miller, the boy who had once been mocked for helping a disguised queen, became known throughout the galaxy as the ambassador of small kindnesses, a title he insisted was far better than any formal designation. As for Aurora, well, she still maintained precise diplomatic protocols, but now her office always had a supply of Earth snacks, and visiting diplomats often reported seeing her sharing them with anyone who seemed to need a little light in their life. After all, as she would say, with a flicker of pride, The most efficient path to peace might just be one sandwich at a time.